Before we begin, I want no comment about the state of my office at the moment. Hello and welcome back to my channel. I hope you had a nice Christmas. I wish you a very happy new year and all the best for 2025. Let's hope it's a good one. Yeah, wedding paintings. If you had told me about a year ago that I would be spending the best part of 2024 working on wedding paintings, I would probably have not believed you. It was never something I intended to work on. It was not a project that I had in mind at the time. I have so many ideas, and many of which I hope to bring to life this year, but wedding paintings was not one of them. So how did we get here? It started with looking for a job. You saw in the summer that I had the dog caricature gig, but that was only for one day. I wanted something a little bit more frequent, and earlier that year there was an offer to be a live wedding painter. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's essentially someone who shows up to your wedding, whether it be at the reception or beforehand as you're getting married, and they paint the scene while the wedding is happening. It's kind of like a very sophisticated form of entertainment. You're there painting away the couple, you're trying to capture the moment, the scene, all the flowers, the church or the reception hall or wherever it's being taken place. And then towards the end of the wedding, while everybody's, had their fun, you make a grand reveal of the painting. I have known about this for a long time already. If you're on TikTok, you probably see lots of content creators who are live wedding painters and they do a phenomenal job. And I was thinking, I guess I could try that. So I reached out to the people who were looking for one. It's an agency that has several across the United Kingdom, but they wanted one near my region in particular. And I messaged them and I sent them in my portfolio, and I was delighted to get a response from them saying they would be thrilled, quote, thrilled to have me. The only issue is nothing in my portfolio was in the realms or the theme of a wedding. There's no brides, there's no flowers, nothing. So they asked me, can I build a portfolio of wedding paintings before they can put me on their agency? I said, sure. And that's where it all began. Fortunately, I have a very large family, and a lot of them are married and have had weddings. So it was very easy in the new year to just reach out to them all and say, hey, who wants a free wedding painting just for the sake of having a portfolio? I was delighted to get an overwhelming response from all of them and so many great pictures, some of which I have every intention to paint sometime in the near future. This video will focus mainly on one wedding painting, but I want it known for the record that I actually did 4 this year. I think it was 4. No, nearly 5, because I started another one, and then yeah, we'll get into that. Because I was given so many different types of wedding paintings from different eras as well. That was the other thing I noticed from the pictures. You could tell which decade these pictures were taken in, from as early as the 1950s all the way to, I think, 2-3 years ago. The quality of the images and the pictures all looked very, very different among each other. And it got my head rolling about how to paint all of them, whether to use oil paint or acrylic, or how to do it, what's the best method of getting the vibe and the colors and the theme of each of these paintings and bring them to life. And then I remembered that live wedding paintings need to try and get a whole painting finished in a single night or day if they get to start early. And I thought it'd be a good idea to test that theory out at home to see if I can actually do this job. So I started with a very small, simple wedding photo from my cousin. Voiceover Maria here, just taking over. This is the reference in question. I figured it'd be a good one to start with as it hides their faces, so to keep them anonymous, this was a good one to start with. I also really enjoyed the quality of the picture and the landscape, keeping it very simple with the trees, the clouds, the sky, etc. I figured that it'd be great to crop it into a square, like so, keeps the couple in frame, and with that I went straight to painting a single color backdrop on a wooden canvas. Being an oil painter, you forget how fast acrylic paint dries. You can see this backdrop I painted less than 10 minutes by the time of filming this, and it was already bone dry. I could not get over that. But I meant I could get straight into painting. So here you can see me putting together the grid, mapping out all the proportions, where the bride and groom are, nature, etc. If you want more details on how I do that, you can see that on my dog portrait video, which is the one before this one. Here you can see that I'm already putting down the sky. With acrylic, it does dry very fast, so you cannot blend it like you would with oil. But what you can do is add as many layers as you like, and it does a full coverage, unlike with oil painting where the first layer will always shine through no matter how many onion layers you put over it. This is the first time I'm painting with acrylic in possibly years and years, so I don't know what I was thinking. I just wanted to try it and see if I could finish a whole wedding painting in one afternoon, evening. And even though I really did enjoy the process of this one, there was the trees. I feel like the trees turned out really well, and the grass was hard to blend because it had a bit of a blur effect, as you can see in the reference. I realized how much I did not want to do this as a full-time job. It was very stressful. I was on a very tight time crunch, and I even gave myself leeway just to do this painting, but it just made me realize how much I don't like painting with acrylic and how much I don't like painting on such a tight deadline. Next up, we have my in-laws. They were actually the first people I spoke to about this wedding painting project, and they were happy enough to send me my very first reference for a wedding painting. But unfortunately, I didn't get too far with painting theirs. I only did the understudy, and I think the reason why I hesitated to finish it was because I didn't like the way their faces had turned out. But that does not mean I don't want to finish it. I will finish it at some point, just not for this video, not this year. It really does have potential. You can see I did a really good job on his sleeve, and his face actually doesn't look too bad. I think it was more her face that I was not happy with, and her dress, something about the way I placed the florals wasn't quite right, but you might see me make another video redeeming myself and finishing it off for the sake of just giving them a painting, because that was the thing I was looking forward to the most, being able to give this to them, but that isn't going to happen, at least not for now. Nevertheless, I included it in the video to show that I did do another wedding painting that didn't get finished. But I'm stubborn, so I didn't give up there. The next painting I decided to do was the one of my parents. I am not going to show you the original reference because they're a bit camera shy, but it's essentially the two of them up close towards the camera with a blurred nature background, like they're in a park surrounded by trees and it's very blurry, just a lot of greenery. For this one, I went straight back to oil paints, or water mixed with oil paints, which is my usual medium, and I decided to go with the Griselle technique. Now, if you're not familiar with this technique, it's essentially painting the first layer, or the first couple of layers, on a grayscale. So the entire portrait is black and white, and then you add a very thin layer of color over the gray, and that should bring out the likeness of them. So that's what I decided to do. So I made the original reference black and white. You can kind of see my dad's face on the tablet on the side. Sorry, Dad. And you can see me trying to work out and get all the shading of their face, of the hair, the suit, all that put together. Fun fact, painting your parents really makes you realize what features you inherited from both of them. As I was painting my dad, I recognized I definitely got my smile from him, the eye colors definitely from him, arguably I'd say the ears as well, and then when I was painting my mom, I was like, oh gosh, I definitely have her eye shape and the shape of her nose. I inherited her jawline, that was for sure. Basically, every time I now look in a mirror, I can see a piece of them on me, and I don't know how I feel about that anymore. It feels like it's not my face anymore, but anyway, back to the painting process. Painting on a grayscale for me is easier. I find color mixing can be a bit intimidating, especially when it comes to shading skin tones, whereas when you're working with a grayscale, it's just all about putting down the right tones and shadows and values, and that just, for me, simplifies it. And that's, I think, the original reason why I decided to try the Griselle method for this painting. I really did not want to mess it up. That doesn't mean it wasn't challenging. I definitely found, you know, for painting being black and white and weddings being a very black and white scene, painting, for example, my mother's wedding veil and her wedding dress, very challenging. The suit was also extremely challenging. I also found, like, while I was painting my mom, I was able to capture her eyes, but then I seemed to have lost her around the lower half of her face. It just didn't quite get there, and even though I've captured my dad's likeness, you can see as I'm painting them, they look extremely cartoonish. And at first, I guess I assumed that that was just how it was. Once I added color, it would probably come to life. I had seen that being done in previous videos of painters who also use the Grizel method, so I decided to just pursue and see if it would get better once I started adding color. As you can see here, I'm putting in the background of the greenery, and that was hard too. I couldn't muster out what was where the colors belonged, and don't even get me started on actually putting down the skin tone. My dad has a bit of a darker complexion than my mom, and yet it just felt like I was giving him a spray tan. It was not going well. You can see me diverging down to painting the suit to avoid looking at the skin tone. I hadn't even finished completing his nose until this very point. It was very awkward, and you could see kind of as all my hand moves, I'm like smudging it, I'm trying to blend it better. It was not looking good, Gave it a second coating, thought that would fix it. That didn't fix it either, and I was getting very angry and frustrated with myself, and I was definitely taking it out on the painting, and I was just making my poor parents look worse and worse as I kept going. I really did try. I tried to fix it. I even had them have a look at it, and even though they didn't say anything, but I could tell they didn't like it either, and I don't blame them. I never got around to even finishing this painting. I just gave up and realized wedding painting is not for me. However, I did want to try one last time. By this point, I had painted, 2-3 wedding paintings that had just not gone well, and I was determined to get at least one decent one. Even though I had given up on becoming a live wedding painter, that job was never going to happen, and this whole project proved how infuriating I find painting weddings. But at the very least, I wanted something good to come out of it and not all my pieces to be failed or unfinished. And so for a final attempt, I wanted to do another one of my cousin from her wedding, where it's just her against the window. Her silhouette is beaming through the light of the window and is on the floor. The window panes look amazing, and I just figured this would be my last attempt to try and get a decent wedding painting. And I apologize for how dark it looks right now. I cannot control the sun, and I don't understand how my camera picks up the lighting yet. I'm still new at this, guys, but it just kept getting dark. Don't worry, it'll be light in just a sec. Back to the actual painting and less of my rambling. For this painting, I did want it to be bigger, I wanted it to be of quality, and I wanted to take up like a room, or the wall of a room, if you will. You can see I've already done the floor. I went over the walls for this one. In the original reference, it had a very nice pattern, but I figured it'd be far too tedious to try and replicate that onto this painting, so I stuck to a very simple dark green. Probably gave it 2 coatings tops. I feel like it gave the perfect shade to dark, because the whole point of this painting is that you have the light coming from behind and the dark is at the front, which is very unusual in most paintings. They like to highlight at the front of the paint or at the side. But I was realizing how, as you'll later see, I'll be working against the grain, if you will. But before we get to that, I did want to show you how I was painting the desk, I guess, at the corner of the painting. I was worried that, like I had done with the previous wedding paintings, I was just relying too much on the subjects at hand. And for this one, I figured that if I do mess up with the bride, if it doesn't look quite like her, or if there's something that malfunctions, at the very least I'll have other elements within the painting that demonstrate decent technique. And I feel like this dresser did just that, because there are so many different colors because of the reflection of the bride and the light onto the varnish of the furniture. We had shades of peach, gray, browns, blacks, yellows, orange, all incorporated into this one bit of furniture, and I had a lot of fun painting it as well. And you can kind of see how the realism shines through, if you will, was the way I dabble into it and kind of match the reflection that I saw in the original reference. I really think that this wardrobe turned out really, really good. And then there's this dark one here in the corner that you just give one very dark shade of brown because it was too dark in the original reference. Oh well. Here you can also see me going against a wall on the floor. I actually do struggle painting the floor a little bit later on, you'll see. But for now, we're going to pretend that didn't happen and just go straight to painting the window. What I liked about painting the window is that the window panes perfectly divide each section of the window that needed to be painted, and I found that helped a lot with deciding which elements to be green, which elements to be blue. It just helped divide the pieces up nicely so I could work section by section instead. Before I could get into the nitty and gritty of the leaves, I did like a soft blue to start off because, as you can imagine, there are leaves gaps that like shine through more of the sun. So I did that first and let that dry, and then went straight to painting on the actual window. Now, we can all guess that the window, much like the wedding dress, is in theory white, but if you were to look closer at the reference, which I'll put right here again, it actually doesn't look white, not really. Very few paintings actually have pure titanium white on them. A lot of colors are actually mixed with very subtle shades of blues, pinks, yellows, what have you. But despite my knowledge of that, I actually did struggle with keeping the values of the window and it not being too dull and grey, because it is still very bright in the reference, but it's still not quite white, and I couldn't figure out why it didn't look the way it was meant to look. Eventually I did speak to a friend about it, and what she recommended was to go back over it and make sure that I incorporate subtly other colorants between them to help divide the different shades of white, if you will, and that did help a lot. So then once the blue was dry, was in the window panes, it's getting dark again, I apologize everybody. I went back in and painted the leaves, and the leaves were different shades of green. There was also some turquoise. It was very fun because it was quite abstract. I could like dabble on them instead of refining them leaf per leaf. And then what I also did was I incorporated the reflection of the bride into the window pane. As you can see, there's like a bit of turquoise reflecting her wedding dress. The curtains, I'll be honest, I have no idea what they would have been in real life. I'm guessing a sort of white, maybe a beige or a cream color, but in the reference they looked very brown and muddy. And rather than try and argue or theorize what would make it look better, I just stuck to what the reference suggested, which was many different shades of like a darkish, muddy looking brown, which wasn't my favorite color to mix and much less to paint, as it didn't look right on the first try. It does pick up again a bit later, but I essentially did that. We had too much light all of a sudden. In this session, I think what I did was mainly tweaking. Yeah, you can kind of see me doing another layer of the wall. Second coatings always make the quality of the painting stand out so much better. It's very hard to do. You're always worried you're not going to get the right color mixing again, or it's going to mess up the first coating you did. Please trust me when I say a second coating of paint on whatever you're doing will make it come such a long way and make it look so much better. Did it for the wardrobe, did it for the walls, did it for the floor. Right, let's talk about that floor. I couldn't decide whether I had done too bright or too dark or too strong a contrast between where the light hits the floor and where the shadow comes in, especially how crisp the edging between the two were. So there was one version where I kind of blurred it and another where I blended it a lot nicely, and I couldn't make up my mind which was better. Finally, I was brave enough to tackle the bride. I just decided to not overthink it and follow what I saw on the reference. As you can imagine, it can sometimes feel strange mixing such dark shades of orange and brown or beige for the dress and skin in theory, but when you put it against the painting you're working with, it actually does come together. As you can see, I was just focusing on making sure the colors matched what I saw in the reference, and as a consequence, it all came together nicely on its own. Back to painting the window, I realized I hadn't done enough blue, so I went back over, painted more gaps in with the blue, and then went back again on the goddamn floor and the window and the curtains. Just went over and over them all over again because I couldn't make up my mind if they looked right yet or not. The life of a painter. At some point, I took about a month off of painting this painting just to give myself a fresh set of eyes to look at it when I felt ready. And I think from this point onwards, when I really started working at the leaves, when I really started getting confident on painting the bride, that I really feel like this painting was finally coming together. Like, it's starting to look like an actual, decent, successful wedding painting. Would you look at that? But as you can imagine, as a consequence, the rest of the process became a case of wondering if you're going too far and how much tweaking is too much tweaking. What if you slip up now? What if you should paint this more? What if this needs another coating? And it became a lot more daunting going back over the window panes, highlighting her face, highlighting the curtains, fixing and tweaking everything that wasn't yet painted. It's a question of like, it looks fine as it is to it can look better. I think that was the rest of the internal monologue going on in my head each time I touched that painting. Perfect timing and a perfect example is those curtains. I felt like they were too light at one point, so I went in extremely dark, and then I went back over it like, no, not really, it's actually better light. You can see me going over it with a cloth, painting it, don't like the colors that I had mixed, going back over it again was a lighter shade. It took several sessions just to get the curtains the way they were, and in the end I just left them. I feel like if I had kept going, I would have never been happy with them, and I would have overdone them, and they would have looked very streaky and zebra stripy, and at some point, sometimes as a painter you gotta know when to just leave well enough alone, and I feel like these curtains were a perfect example of that, because I just could never quite get it right. Finally, a close-up of the bride for proper. Painting her was definitely the part that reassured my confidence as a painter. It looks just like the reference. It highlights the dress beautifully. I did a great job on the lace. I feel like I got the colors right. It's perfect. And then eventually I got around to painting the bouquet of flowers, which I was very hesitant to do because it's the most colorful part of the reference. And I wasn't sure if I was overdoing it or underdoing it, but honestly, I think they just turned out perfectly. And then the thing that I really thought brought the quality of the painting together was adding the highlight in her silhouette. You saw me do it on the bouquet, you can see me now doing it on her face and her dress. That brought the painting to life. That was when I went, yes, this painting has a chance. It's gonna be good. It is good. We've got it. We've got a good painting. To finish off the painting, I just added some final highlights on the curtains and finished painting the veil. But by gosh, was it so nice after a whole year of painting to have a final, finished, wonderful looking wedding painting and time to give to a family member. I am so happy. She had no idea that I was even painting this painting to begin with, and I tried very hard to not show it or hint at it to anybody. Only if you were following me on TikTok over the last year, you saw it as like a very purposely prompted prop for all my videos. Because it's such a massive painting and there's so much to it, even when it was barely touched, it did a great job of just being the subject matter of my video as an artist trying to make content on the internet. To finish it off, to make it look professional, I painted the outlines of it black. And I signed the back and I had it all wrapped up and sent to her for Christmas. And she wasn't there. She wasn't able to be there on the day. And I was like, oh, guess I won't get to see her unwrap it, which was what I had been looking forward to the entire day. And her mother, my aunt, was like, I'll take it, I'll make sure she gets it. I'm like, yeah, that's great. I really wanted to see her unwrap it. And then by miracle, I can only describe it as like a miniature Christmas miracle, her mom came over to visit the same time. She was planning to visit me separately, and she was like, oh, I never took it out of the car. Do you want to give it to her when she comes around? I was like, yes, thank you. And so we did, and she unwrapped it.
It looks amazing. It's really perfect like this. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Oh my goodness.
I think
That's gorgeous handwriting.
but it was perfect with marble from the
Oh my
gosh.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Wow.
oh, Maria.
Oh, Maria,
That's
that's
amazing.
fantastic.
Maria.
Oh, you're phenomenal.
Yeah. I'm sure a few of them are wondering, where's my wedding painting? I still plan to paint them. Some of them aren't even like traditional Western weddings, and I thought, you know, the colors for them would have been extraordinary, especially if I went for more of an impressionist style. And so entering 2025, I'm debating, you know, can I try and do more wedding paintings alongside the other projects I have? hopefully you'll see more videos from me because I do have so many paintings alongside this wedding painting that I had been working on. That's the hardest part about being a painter. You have one big painting and a lot of little ones, or like several miniature ones, or several different other projects going around at the same time. And as far as the viewers are concerned, I worked on one painting for 8 months and then bam, I had 4 more that I did in a month after. That's not how it works. I never know how to end these videos. I guess the lessons I've learned for this painting is painting bigger is more work, but it is worth it. The power of pursuit is your biggest ally, even when it really doesn't feel like it. Keep going, even during the ugly phase, even during the I'm not too sure phase, even during the gosh, am I wasting my life away phase, which wasn't too long on this painting, but it was roped in with a few other elements of my year. I am a painter. I can still paint. I did have my doubts at the beginning with all the other paintings I'd failed. I intend to give my parents a proper wedding painting. Whether I will try and recreate the one I did before or try a different painting from a different reference altogether, I don't know. That was me doing a wedding painting. And no, I still don't want to be a live wedding painter. I don't know how they do it. Like, firstly, they must do it with acrylic, because once the day is up, how do you carry it home with you? That was a big factor I realized, because I don't have a car, and a lot of Chester, which is where I am based, you know, like the rural northwest area, has so many beautiful venues, but the transport to get there, I'm not sure how I would have done that, or if I could risk getting paint on other people's vehicles. I also knew that there was no way in hell I could do a perfect painting capturing the likeness of the couple and have it finished on time while everybody's dancing and singing and blasting live music around me. It's an experience, and you need a certain mindset to do it, and I realized I don't have that. So mad props to every live painter I come across, whether it be in person or online. I'm sorry that I couldn't be what the agency wanted me to be, but yeah, I have different plans in mind for me as a painter. And follow and subscribe to this channel to watch my journey and see if I get there. Not see if I get there, I will get there, just as a matter of when. Thank you for watching my video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Share as well to your friends and family. Commissions are open for 2025, and prints. I have prints. I even have a new selection of prints of the Berries and Biscuits series. If you haven't watched that video yet, we now have prints size A4 available on my store, so make sure you check that out. It will be linked down below. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Bye!